So, welcome to the Spotlight. This is our first podcast, and today I am introducing one of my clients who has an interesting business story from frogs to first dates and everything in between, and proves that success never is a straight line on the road to where you are trying to get to. So, welcome, Steve.
Hello.
And just want to start off by talking about the full starts. I think everybody often sees success as an overnight thing, but actually, it wasn't a straight line and it wasn't success at first for you, was it?
No, far from it. I started my first business at 18. I had no idea what I was doing. I went into car valeting and repairs because I thought I was pretty good at working on my own cars. It failed. Luckily, I was let out of the 3-year lease that I'd signed.
The next business wasn't the road to success either, was it?
No,
From
it wasn't.
memory.
I set up a business with what would be my long-term business partner. 2000 it was, end of 1999. And we thought we had a great idea. We went for funding. We got the funding. Everything was going extremely well. We were building a business, albeit very slowly, not as fast as we intended to become millionaires. And then one day out of the blue, we had a message to say that funding was being withdrawn. It was all down to the dot-com bubble bursting and people just simply backing out, and there would be no further funding for us. So that was it.
And what motivated you to keep going through, pushing through from these failures? Because most normal people would have just given up at the second sort of like.
I didn't see them as failures. I think that's what it was. I didn't see them as failures. I saw them more as learnings. I look back on each attempt, as not so much as I didn't get that right. That went horribly wrong. I look back on it as why? Why didn't I get it right? What could I have done differently to make that work?
Go on, sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that's driven everything I've done. Not to be afraid to make the move. That's pretty much the starting point. If you don't start, and I sat down from that point on. Myself and my business partner sat down over many coffees, discussing some of the most harebrained ideas for businesses that you've ever seen in your life. He also went off and set something up that didn't work. And it was just one thing after another that these ideas came about, and we sort of brainstormed them until we decided that they were pretty rubbish.
And then what were, in the early days, obviously, what did you learn from those setbacks? So what were the key learnings? So if you've got someone that was in a similar position to you were when the second business failed, like, what were the key lessons that you learned from those setbacks? Like, I guess it's like what not to do.
Oh, key lessons. Listen to the advice you're given by people who know what they're doing. If somebody says that something's not going to work for a particular reason, they've probably got a reason for saying that. And, not to just dismiss it because you feel you know better. That's the very early stuff. Really listen to yourself, because I think more often than not, we fool ourselves into thinking that something's going to work, but it's not going to work if you do the same things over and over. It's not going to work if you continue doing the same things wrong.
Yeah. Let's move on to the crazy frog.
Crazy frog. Yeah.
Crazy. So I first started working with you when the crazy frog kicked off. Do you want to give a bit of a background how you fell into, or not, we didn't fall into, but how you ended up dealing with the crazy frog?
Oh, no, I fell into it. I fell into it, definitely. The crazy frog was doing the rounds on the internet, one of the first internet virals in 2004. My son saw the viral. I thought it might be a good idea and asked him if he wanted a T-shirt. So I had a loose idea that you needed permission to use other people's images, and the stuff that we were grabbing off the internet at the time was pretty rubbish anyway. So the guy that had done the crazy frog video actually had his mobile phone number on his website. So I rang him and said, do you want to do T-shirts, or do you have T-shirts at that point? And he said no, he had nothing. He'd done it for his university coursework, didn't want to make any money out of it. So I then said, I dropped him an email afterwards and said, is it okay if I print up a T-shirt for my son? Could I have a graphic? And he was kind enough to send me a high resolution graphic for the printers. And we bought some HP iron-on T-shirt transfers. We had to buy a pack of 10. My son then went out into the street with this crazy frog with his wobbly dangly bits hanging between his legs, which at the time was quite amusing when you're 7. And every kid in the street wanted a T-shirt. So that's pretty much where it started. I ran out of HP transfers very quickly. Got back in touch with Eric, the guy that had done it, and he said that he still had no intention of doing any merch. And that ended, and that was about August, September of 2024. So at the end of that year, about November time, I saw the first of the Jamba mobile phone adverts on the telly, and realised that something big was kicking off with this character. So I got back in touch with Eric and almost begged him to let me do some T-shirts, and we came together, put a deal together, and then my wife and I were packing T-shirts and sending them worldwide, packing them overnight on the landing of our house because it was massive. It just took off literally overnight.
I mean, you say you fell into it, but I don't think many people would have had the courage to actually contact the owner. So actually, was it falling into it, or was it making the most of the opportunity that you...
Yeah, okay, making the most of the opportunity. I fell across it, should we say,
Yeah.
and then made the most of the opportunity. When I spoke to Eric, when the advert came out on the telly for the ringtone, and I said I didn't think that you were going to make this a commercial thing, and he said he couldn't turn down the offer that Jamba had offered him to make the ad ringtone. So
Yeah.
they wanted the imagery. He did the imagery. Another guy owned the ringtone itself, but between them, they made a bit of a killing.
Which again, this is when we first started working together. So there was all sorts of merchandise in the unit at the time that was being
Yeah, yeah.
sold.
We went very quickly. It's a very, very long story, and one I've told over many a dinner table. But I was busy putting the T-shirts out. A deal was struck with a T-shirt manufacturer in Manchester. There were rumours that a song was coming out, and a guy rang me out of the blue on one Friday afternoon and said, "I understand you've got the license to print the Crazy Frog merchandise." And the guy turned out to be a chap that was very, very well positioned in the intellectual property business, working with some of the major players. And as luck would have it, he was literally driving past Birmingham, where I was living, on the Monday, coming back from a friend's stag do, as I remember. So we met up, and over a handshake and a cup of coffee at Motorway Services, the company that is still running today, the intellectual company, AT, was set up to do all the Crazy Frog stuff. And you got involved after we just started speaking to some major players, and we had eventually something like 50 different products in the UK alone, and it ended up with close on 500 products worldwide. So it was, quite a ramp, very steep learning curve.
Yeah, and it was. And all throughout this, you always seem to have a calm persona, if that makes sense. Whereas a lot of people, when they were dealing with this level of growth, almost would implode, if that makes sense. So, considering you're dealing with a lot, how did you manage such aggressive growth, if that's the right term to use?
Copious amounts of alcohol, I think, Carrie. No, it was, I found it easy in a way because because I was so laid back about it. It was quite exciting, but I took every little bit of it at face value. I didn't realize it would build so quickly, but when it did, you have to put the effort in. I was working easily sort of 18-hour days at the peak. I was handling contracts that I'd never, ever done before. And it's amazing when you speak to lawyers, because obviously the people who were working for the two lads that owned the IP, and then you've got the lawyers that are working for some of the master toy makers and all the rest of it, and they've all got different ideas. And eventually, being laid back helped in that scenario, because I basically just said to all the lawyers, like, look, you've got to sort this out. We need one document. We can't be. I was speaking as an outsider from the industry. You're not all going to get what you want if you don't work together. And we ended up with everything that we needed. So I found it not easy. It was stressful. But I think I consider myself as a people person. And if you deal with people how they would like to be dealt with, you can move mountains.
I'd agree with that. Whatever challenge, you seem to come across, or whatever bad news I seem to give you from HMRC, you always seem to take it well. Or just, it's the human side of things first, I guess. We can work through it rather than just going into, whereas a lot of clients would just panic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So roll forward from the crazy frog. We then end up, excuse the pun, dipping into fish.
Dipping into fish, yes.
You launched the dating platform, and again, back in business with the original business partner. How did that story start?
Well, that, strangely enough, was off the back of, during the Crazy Frog period, we needed, I was just one person, and Paul, my business partner at the time, one person. And between us, we couldn't cover the world. So we felt we needed a way to handle the project online. And there was so little around. And I was researching one day, trying to find a company that produced a piece of presentation software that we could update quickly and easily. And there was a company in Windsor that was online, said they did. And I got in touch with them, and they'd actually decided that they weren't focusing on that side of the business anymore because they'd just set up a dating platform. Prior to the Crazy Frog, I'd gone on a bit of a domain buying spree. I bought probably 10 or 15 different domains that I felt might be useful in the future. And one of those domains was plentymorefish.com. And I bought it. It had become available. It used to belong to a chip shop in Manchester. So I bought it and did nothing with it. I had a program, a friend of mine had set a little sort of dating thing up in the background. It wasn't doing much at all. We didn't have the infrastructure in place. When I was speaking to Rawnet, the company at the time, and they said they got a dating platform, did I know of any, if ever I came across any domains that I felt could be used? And I said, oh, I've got plentymorefish.com. And he nearly fell off his chair. And what we didn't know at the time was that plentyoffish.com had started in Canada the same year as us. They'd started exactly the same time, the same year that I'd bought the domain they were setting up, but they would have become a very, very big free dating site, and we were moving into paid dating. We were in the UK. We had it trademarked in the UK very, very quickly, and it started to work for us. Started advertising on Google, and that's when my business partner came back into the business, because again, I was still dealing with a crazy frog. I needed somebody to look after that side of the business.
One of the things that, well, there's two real important learning points for me, just as an outsider looking at the Plenty More story, was the first thing is I can remember talking to you both about the white label. And obviously, can you remember the conversation about, obviously with the white label, they take a processing fee and pay out on the net amount, but obviously they're charging for managing the website. And I can remember, and funny enough, it rounds back into the conversation we've just been having. I can remember having a conversation about, why don't you manage it yourself? And at the time, Well, do you want to give me the answer as to why you chose not to develop your own dating website and have a team of people against white labeling?
We started, as I say, prior to the Crazy Frog business, we had started building our own dating platform, albeit on a very small basis. And little did we know that our competitor in Canada was doing exactly the same thing. And we were gaining traffic. And we were talking, this was back in 2002. And we were gaining traffic and putting people in, but it wasn't the best of platforms. It didn't have very much in it. There was just the one guy working on it as a programmer, and it was growing. But we had no revenue stream on it. Everything was free. We had no revenue coming in from it. And then they literally speaking to somebody who'd got a dating platform, who at that time only had a small number of developers, but they had 3 at the time, I think, which is 2 more than we had. And they'd got a white label platform that they were willing to let us hook into. And that was a bit of a no-brainer to think, well, we need revenue to grow it. We need revenue to advertise it. So taking the work that we'd done and putting that to one side and then moving on to the white label platform, taking the domain across, all of a sudden, we had a few thousand people that had registered in the very, very early days, and we had their email addresses. So basically, we wrote out to them and said, here we are. Here's our new platform. We've rebuilt everything. What do you think? And straight away, people were jumping onto the site and converting, and it was paying for itself in absolutely no time.
And also, again, by white labeling it, you haven't got to deal with a lot of the operational issues, have you? That would have
No,
come
everything was done for us. Yeah.
which, from my understanding, meant that you could concentrate on the bits of the business that you enjoyed and you were good at, which was, the marketing, the Google traction, um,
Yes. Yeah.
and
We simply went out there then teaching ourselves how to market the dating site as opposed to how to run it. Because we knew that we had a team at the back end that were looking after billing, they were looking after refunds, they were looking after customer support. Everything was being done for us. So that meant we just had to put people into it.
yeah, which again, it probably would have been a completely different story had you had to do all that admin and operational part of it.
Definitely. Definitely. It would have been a lot harder.
Do you think it would have been as successful because of not having the time to promote it and push it?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been as successful without the white label setup. Simple reason is that because they were white label, they had a lot of companies feeding traffic into their shared database. So for us, that's beneficial. So whereby we had, I think in the very early days, of the thousands that we had email addresses for, we took hundreds of those across onto the new platform. But there's also other people out there taking their traffic into the same platform. So it was growing at a much, much greater rate than we could have ever made it grow.
Yeah, definitely. And then talk to me about and it's amazing how many people don't do this, about the importance of the trademarking of the name.
Yeah, that was important for us. We decided to trademark it very, very early on. So we got our UK trademark. We got an EU trademark off the back of that because we'd got the UK trademark. And then we hit a snag, shall we say, because the guy that owned our competitor's site, we applied for an American trademark and that was blocked by him. And he then decided that he would go after our UK trademark. Very, very long story, but he failed. I can understand why it happened, but the importance of trademarking, without that trademark in the UK, our business would have ended there and then. And because he was trademarked everywhere but the UK. So he came to the UK to try and take our trademark off us. And it was a very long and expensive legal case. But eventually, we reached an agreement with him. And that agreement is still in place today, that we wouldn't go into the US. We could operate in the UK and Europe where our trademark stood, And as I say, that was, good grief, we're talking 14 years ago, something like that, 15 years ago. And that agreement is still in place. So the trademarking was so, so important.
And if you hadn't of had those setbacks at the beginning, so almost if you hadn't have signed a lease that you shouldn't have signed, gone harebrained into another business venture with your business partner at the time, do you think those lessons helped to make sure you'd got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed?
Yes. Yeah. By then, we had, because we'd gone sort of full pelt into the Crazy Frog business, and I'd learned firsthand how important trademarking is, and, for intellectual property protection. And I was actually running a business then, don't forget, we were still running the business for IP licensing alongside the dating site. It was just the next natural step. We need to get this trademarked. But many, many people don't. They don't trademark it. They see it as an unnecessary cost in the early days. But it's a very, very necessary cost, and one that can save you a fortune in the future of your company.
Because at the end of the day, if you hadn't have had that trademark, it would have all just gone belly up.
Oh, it would have done. Yeah, there would have been nothing we could have done. Yeah, there would have been nothing we could have done.
So we went from dating and fish through to TV animation and the monster and the grumpy old man, shall we put it? So do you want to explain about?
Yes, strangely enough, it all came about because a guy did an animation using the soundtrack for the Crazy Frog, viral, and he had his own character, Jeb T Sausage Freak, as he's known. And I wanted to use his character as a kind of promotional thing. I was really interested, so of course I got in touch with him, found out who it was, got in touch with him, rang him up, and you could sense the fear in his voice when he answered the phone. And the guy's on the end of the phone who's doing all the licensing for the Crazy Frog, and he's just done a viral. But it was, there was an instant friendship formed, because we both had similar insights. We both had similar sense of humor. It was instant. Within no time at all, we were working on other intellectual properties. One was Story Monster, which was a kids storytelling IP. We struggled to get any real momentum on that, although it did go out locally on TV in and around Birmingham. It went out on TV, so we could say that did get onto TV.
Which is good.
Yeah, which is good. But we've actually, and this has been going on now again for close on 20. We've got to the point now where we're raising investment for his character, Jeb T Sausage Freak, and we're making a movie. So I'm currently a movie producer. That is something that I didn't see coming.
But again, with that, you're talking a 20-year journey. So this is, again, people perceive it as overnight success, but it's not, is it?
No.
You said you fell into the Crazy Frog, but it's making the most of the opportunities that are put your way. And again, with Jeb, most people would have given up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, as I understand it, there's been lots of setbacks to get to where you are now, and you've just pushed through.
Yes. I mean, Jeb has been around on the internet since early 2000s, got a massive following, but we've never been able to raise any finance behind it until now. The movie idea was always in the offing. It's just that meeting the right people, being introduced via Nick's network, to people within the business who say, oh yeah, we can find financiers, we can find investors for the movie. Again, it's people. Building that network around your business. And it's people you don't always come into contact with firsthand. They're going to be through somebody else. But the initial thing here was, being involved in the Crazy Frog, and then speaking to Nick, and then Nick knows somebody else, and he knows somebody else. And before you know it, a long way down the road, all of a sudden there's a company that's interested in finding investors for the movie project that you've always wanted to do,
Mm,
and keeping these things on the back burner.
mm.
You never know. You never know when it's going to show a face.
And maintaining a network, because I think, again, this is getting to be a lost art as well, maintaining a network with regard that the younger generation that are coming through don't seem to sort of grasp the importance of that network around you and the
Yeah.
people connection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's I drum it into my son now. He's gone into media. The importance of building that network, having people, because you don't know, you might meet somebody today who you don't actually work with for the next 5 years, 6 years.
Mm.
But if you meet them and you make the right impression, and making that impression is so important, and then not being the pain in the backside, chasing them up for business and all the rest of it. Eventually, I'm a firm believer in this, the time will come. There's a path for everybody. And when I look at the sliding doors situation with what I've been doing, it all comes back to one particular business, but it's opened up so many opportunities for me through the network of people that I've been involved with.
And I think personally with AI and everything, I don't want to go down that wormhole. I think actually your network of people is going to become more important.
Yeah, definitely.
And,
Definitely.
because even like with social media posts now, you don't trust it because you don't know whether it's AI. So I think actually the human side of things is just going to be more and more important.
Without a
So
doubt.
yeah, definitely. So last chapter, let's talk about your recent venture with spannering, as I'm going to put
Sorry.
it. Spannering, actually, out of all the phases I've seen you and your business partner go through, this is my favourite because you both just seem like, if we stick to animals, pigs in muck. So do you want to
Yeah.
explain a bit about your spannering and how the change again?
Yeah, I mean, we're extremely lucky. Both of us have been involved in businesses that have allowed us to reach this point, shall we say. So we've got a man cave now that's been enabled through our property portfolio that was put together from the profits that we've made together from other businesses. So we feel very, very lucky to be at this point, but we've kind of regressed back to our teenage years. Both of us went through apprenticeships. Both of us have an engineering background. I always rib him because he went through his apprenticeship with British Leyland and they were rubbish. But I do sincerely hope he's watching this. We've both gone full circle. We've both come back to our spannering. So we've got a man cave, which is quite vast. It's a big unit. We've managed to get 3 bike lifts in there. He's rebuilding a bike that he's owned for the past 30 odd years. He's rebuilding a Honda GL 1100. I'd always wanted a Lambretta. Couldn't get hold of one when I was younger. Had a Vespa, but always wanted a Lambretta. And I'm restoring a Lambretta, which is almost finished. I've done what they call a restoration on another Lambretta, which is now finished and on the road, taxed and insured. And I've just bought my third, not a Lambretta, but I bought a Peugeot, a 1958 Peugeot scooter, which personally I think is absolutely beautiful. And I'm actually converting that to an EV. So that will have a motor and batteries and be a full restoration too. So yeah, it's 2 days a week. It's quite a relaxed setup. Mondays and Tuesdays we're in there. Sometimes I'll work extra hard on Wednesdays and Thursdays so I can go back in on Friday because I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, and it is great just to see the full circle.
Yeah,
Because I think I've worked with you and Steve for over 20 years now, I think it is.
yeah.
And just to see you, I know it sounds, in your happy place, really, is the honest answer.
It
Answer.
is. It is a happy place, definitely.
And you've both worked really hard. You've both taken risks other people wouldn't have taken. Um, and it is just great to just see you both so happy and doing something you enjoy. And I just think that's really, really important after the journey you've been on, just to see someone get to the stage
Yes,
doing
it's
what they want to do.
yeah. I mean, I've always been into my motorbikes. I'd like nothing more than a weekend. And this is quite important actually, because, all work and no play, as they say, makes Jack or whoever it is a dull boy. My riding at weekends has always been a bit of a relief, getting out there has always been that kind of release for me. But now I've taken it a step further. I'm building these things to ride them is somewhere I never expected I would be. And the good thing is, because I've been successful at everything else, well, when I say everything, that's not fair. I've invested in projects that have totally gone down the pan. But because I've got to this point, I don't have to make money from what I'm doing spannering. It's great. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing.
Which I mean, I don't have ambitions to spanner when I'm older or do spannering, but it's just great that you've almost engineered your semi-retirement, should we put it, because there's still projects you've got on the burner and you still work on.
Yeah.
I just want to move over to the mindset side, to the growth more than anything. So one thing that I have admired about you and your wife as well is throughout all this, you've had a lot of success, and a lot of people that have had the success you've had don't stay true to themselves. They don't stay the same grounded person. But you and your wife have, and that's a great approach to it.
Yeah.
And how have you managed that throughout all these trials and tribulations, just to stay grounded?
I think the most important thing is that I've always built this, coming back to this network thing since school. I mean, my business partner I was in school with, I met her when I was 11. I'm still in touch with probably 3 of my original schoolmates. Then there's people that I met in college. I still go out for meals and drinks with people I met in college. And then as I've gone through life, the people that I've worked with have become friends. I think that's so important. You say about the grounding is that, yes, I've had success, but one thing I don't do is I don't see myself as anything more or above the people that are in my network. I see everybody that I know on the same level. It's always have. I don't see people below me. And I think the problem is that a lot of people lose touch with that reality. They do say that money can cause you to lose friends. And I think in a lot of cases, it's not the money, it's the person. The person uses the money against their network. And I've never, ever felt like that. I've always seen everyone as equal.
Yeah. And I think, again, what is key there is seeing everyone on the same level. I can't remember which businessman who said in his speech, even the janitor has a role to play
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
company. So yeah, no, I think that's really important, and that nicely rolls onto how we started working together, because it actually started with you chasing me for money. Because
Yes, it did.
we you obviously provided licensing service to the group of companies that I work for, and I was never allowed to pay.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember that.
And then obviously came on to do the bookkeeping for AT. And again, not being the one to be cheeky, I'd been working with you for how long before you realised I could do year-end accounts?
Yeah, well, exactly. We were working with an accountant, no names, no pack drill, who I didn't trust as far as I could throw them. And I remember moaning to you about this accountant, and you were there doing the bookkeeping, and I'm whittering on about the problems I'm having with the accountant, and you still didn't say, well, actually, I'm chartered. I could do your end of years. And I don't know how we came across the subject. And I think it was just maybe one day over a drink, and you just said, I am, I could do that. But this was months, if not years down the line.
Yeah, it was, and I think it was because I was new in my business and didn't was brought up in a age where you didn't tread on the chartered accountant's toes. But
No.
again, part of what we do at Spotlight, or try and encourage clients, is to work with as the trusted advisor. So again, it isn't just a relationship that we do year-end accounts for. We've gone through, probably you're one of the only clients I've gone through the whole business life cycle with.
Probably. Yeah.
From starting up, from managing the taxation on the high profits, to looking how you make the money work for you and Jane, your wife, right through to winding down in the nicest possible way, not that you're winding down.
Oh
So,
no, I'm winding down. Yeah.
and again, throughout all this, what started off as a client accountant relationship, you and Jane have become really good friends. And actually, on the other side of the coin, there's times when you offer me help and support. Sometimes I'm being an
Yeah.
idiot. Sometimes it's just help with, for example, setting this podcast up. And again, I think that goes back to what you said about your network.
I've always been criticised throughout life because I can't say no. And whenever somebody comes to me in my network that needs help, the help's there. But I think that's so important because you never know when that person is going to be able to return the favour.
Mm,
So I've had people say to me, you don't get paid for that. You're doing all this and you don't get paid for that. But it's not that. It's just the fact that at some point in this web that we weave, paths will cross again.
mm.
So
No, definitely. Definitely. And I think also it's, again, you learn off your network for the skills in business.
yeah.
So, there's been challenges you've been through where my skill set has helped. And likewise, again, particularly with advertising and marketing, a sounding board. I'm going to finish off with a quick fire round. So, what has been your favourite business moment so far?
Oh gosh, favorite business moment. Wow. Okay, going back to Crazy Frog, when um, I rang the chap who was doing the t-shirts for us for his first quarterly report on the business that he'd done. And this chap had said that he could sell millions of kids' t-shirts. And I rang him up for his first quarter report. And I won't give exact figures, but I was gobsmacked. I'll never forget it. I know exactly where I was on the M1 motorway at the time when he told me what we'd just in kids' t-shirts in 3 months. That was a defining moment. Definitely. Definitely.
And again, just going back to a conversation before, again, I think this is again where your business story is brilliant because with the t shirts, when it gets too big, you've outsourced it.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of people would have chosen to print those shirts themselves, be up till 1 o'clock in the morning, packaging those t-shirts up. But your skill set identifies that this is bigger than you and Jane can do.
Well, I will say now, we were buying t-shirts, and this will show you how difficult that decision could have been for many people. We were buying t-shirts for a few quid and selling them at the time for, I think we were buying them for £2.50 or something and selling them for a fiver. So making £2.50. The call came through from the chap in Manchester, and Eric asked me to go and see him to see whether or not he could help us. And we sat in the meeting and discussed how much he would pay us per t-shirt, and it was 15 pence per t-shirt. You're then faced as a business with 15 pence as a t-shirt, but he's saying he can sell millions, or £2.50, but I'm up till 3 o'clock in the morning putting labels on them. And to me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. You just go, say, okay, fine. So I take the information back to Eric. We have the discussion, and the rest is history, as I say, because true to his word, he sold millions of them.
Hmm. That is one of the sort of like real learnings from your business journey. Not that I apply that necessarily, but and again, just outsourcing. You're better having a million 15p's and 100,000 £2.50s, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes, exactly.
Next one, your funniest fail.
The funniest fail. I suppose the funniest fail was one of my first business meetings for the Crazy Frog era when I walked out of the office to go for a drink with a client and closed the door behind me, leaving the keys on my desk.
We all have those senior moments.
Yeah, and that was slamming the door, and as it slammed, the whole atmosphere for that lunch then disappeared because I'm more worried about how I'm going to get back into the office to get my car keys. Yeah, and doing it in front of somebody you've only just met as well.
We all have these moments, but that
Yeah,
makes us human at the end of the day.
it does. It does.
And what's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
The best bit of advice. The best bit of advice I ever received, I utterly ignored for many, many years, and that is start your pension. I'm not kidding. I spent years catching up. I'm lucky now. I've got a good pension. I started it way too late, and I'm just lucky that the businesses I was running had enough profit in them for me to catch up. And I would say to anybody, the younger you are, the better, start your pension.
Do you think this is an entrepreneurial trait, though, not to think about it? Because we have a
Yeah.
number of clients that are maybe further back in their journey compared to where you are, but you consistently, and I get it myself running a business, you are engineered to grow your business. That it's just in your DNA, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you don't seem to look at the long term until almost you think, oh crap, I've only got so many years to retirement. I need to sort this out.
That's exactly what happened to me, Carrie. I was told by my dad when I was younger to start a pension. I knew I had a pension from many, many years ago that I'd put 10 pence into at some point, and I figured I'd be all right. When I sat down, probably 4 or 5 years into my current business journey, the growth, and I think it was on advice I'd taken from you that tax efficiency, by having a pension, you could be much, much more tax efficient. Um, I went and sat down with a pensions advisor. And I'll never forget. They asked for my age and when I was looking to retire. They asked my date of birth, when I was looking to retire, and then she said, "So you've got 12 years," because I was 48 and I wanted to retire at 60. And she said, "You've got 12 years." And I said, "For what?" She said, "Till you retire." I said, "Oh, good God!" And then it dawned on me that actually I only had 12 years because in my head I still had 20 years. That was quite a defining moment. And then she said, uh, "You realize it's going to cost you a lot of money to catch up to the point that you need to be in those 12 years." So, yeah.
Yeah, I do generally think it is just honestly, I think I sound like white noise to clients in respect that I talk about it from the tax efficiency, but it's really important because your pensions always get overlooked because, and again, I know the plenty more sort of like it peaked, it didn't peak, it grew really quickly.
Yeah,
Again, and with the crazy frog, a lot of time and energy went into building those businesses and the cash flow wasn't there to make those contributions until the peak sort of hits,
that's
does it?
right. No, that's right. That's right.
And we
But
sit,
we made the most of it. We made the most of it at the time. I'd say that was the best bit of advice I would give to anybody. Listen to your accountant.
I'm glad you listened, Steve. And one thing you'd tell your past self, your past self.
My past self. One thing I would tell my past self. Oh, I'm at a bit of a loss with that one.
So if you could go back to yourself when you were cleaning cars, what would you tell? Is there anything you'd tell yourself then? Any advice you'd give?
From my early days, and this is again, it's a monetary thing, and it's something I do tell my son now, is never spend your tax money. Far too many times you come to the end of the year and it's like, I've got to find how much. Yeah. So, yeah, it's quite a difficult thing for most people to get their heads around. I know it was for me. So, yeah, my younger self, put the tax money to one side and leave it there.
Again, it's another thing that's hard when you set up a business because when you are PAYE or you're in your apprenticeship, your tax is taken as you go along. So
Yeah,
it's fine. But then when you are running a business, you can, if you've got a March year end, you earn money in April. You don't pay that until the following December.
that's
So
right. Yeah.
It's almost, yeah, and it is. It is really hard to get that mindset. And even my husband, we've got an account where it automatically puts when you receive money, it automatically puts the tax money aside. And even
Yeah.
he said, "Why can't I spend this money again?" And I'm like, "It's not yours, it's HMRC's." What's this account for? That's your VAT. But it's really hard. It's really, especially when, again, in the early days, you might not be making enough money to cover your costs. So, going through the dividend salary model, you might not be making enough profit to pay the dividends you need. So it is really hard to balance it, but it is, as an accountant, really important to save for your tax. So finally, you're in a place now where you're doing something that you absolutely love with renovating the scooters. And how much more motivation do you get for that? What is the difference between getting up and doing something you absolutely love versus getting up and doing something that you've got to do to make the money?
I think sometimes your business mind it's almost like muscle memory. You just get on with it and you don't look forward to it. You do it to the best of your ability, but you don't look forward to it. And I would say that as early as possible, take some time out. You don't have to be in your business 100% of the time. Even if you can just grab the odd day, half a day, and do something you really enjoy doing, do it. Because I didn't realize what I was missing. To be fair, I mean, Steve and I have concentrated on the business for so many years. We're talking 22 years now. It's a staggering amount of time when you think about it, and you kind of lose focus on what it was you enjoyed doing.
Mm,
And having the ability, and I'll say again, we're lucky we have this ability. Having the ability to do it, it's made us realize that business isn't everything. It's work to live or live to work. There's a balance. You've got to find that balance sooner rather than later.
no, brilliant. Thank you, Steve. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and as ever. And I'm sure I'll give the other Steve the opportunity to discuss about whose apprentice scheme was the best. But
Mine.
it's an absolute pleasure to work with you both as your accountant as well. But I just think yours is a story that needs to be shared because, again, like I said before, you and Steve are probably one of the best untold stories, is my honest opinion. So, no, thank you very much.
I am available for after dinner speaking, bar mitzvahs.
Oh, real. Any,
Bye.
if you want Steve to talk. Thank you.